For decades, John Travolta has lived under one of Hollywood's brightest spotlights, yet some parts of his life remained deliberately quiet. When conversations resurfaced about his long-standing connection to Scientology following renewed public interest in the documentary Going Clear, Travolta did not rush to defend or denounce. Instead, he chose something far more personal: reflection. At the height of his fame, when expectations were crushing and identity felt fragile, he sought grounding wherever it appeared available. Today, at 71, that same man lives a quieter life in Florida, far removed from premieres and roaring crowds. The silence he inhabits now is not empty, but layered with memory, choice, and consequence. What once seemed like avoidance has slowly revealed itself as deliberation. Travolta's story is not about scandal or shock, but about a lifelong search for stability in an industry that rarely allows stillness. Searching for meaning amid sudden fame. In 1975, John Travolta was a young actor whose life had accelerated faster than his emotional footing could keep pace with. Fame arrived early, and with it came relentless pressure to succeed, perform, and remain composed. During that period, Travolta explored Scientology after reading Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard, a book that promised clarity and self-understanding. For a 21-year-old navigating sudden stardom, those ideas resonated deeply. In past interviews, Travolta explained that the philosophy offered him structure at a time when Hollywood felt chaotic. He spoke about learning tools for self-reflection and emotional balance, not ideology or power. His involvement grew gradually, shaped by a desire for order rather than influence. At that stage of his life, Scientology represented a personal framework, one that helped him manage fear, expectation, and the disorienting speed of success. Commitment, belief, and public identity. As Travolta's career soared, his association with Scientology became more visible, largely because he never tried to conceal it. He attended events, spoke openly about his experiences, and credited certain teachings with helping him maintain focus in an unstable profession. To some fans, this openness felt admirable. To others, confusing. Travolta, however, rarely framed his beliefs as universal truths. He spoke instead about personal benefit and individual choice. Over time, his identity as both a global star and a committed member of a controversial organization became inseparable in public perception. Yet privately, his life remained compartmentalized. Acting was his craft. Family was his anchor. Belief was his internal compass. This separation allowed him to move forward without constantly explaining himself. For years, silence served as protection, not secrecy, as he learned how to live with public curiosity without surrendering personal boundaries. Questions that arrived quietly. By the early 2000s, conversations around Scientology grew louder in public spaces, fueled by former members sharing critical experiences. Travolta never publicly engaged in those debates, choosing restraint over reaction. Still, sources close to him later suggested that he listened carefully to differing perspectives, especially from trusted friends outside the organization. This period was not marked by dramatic breaks or confrontations, but by internal questioning. Travolta remained respectful while becoming more selective in what he discussed publicly. He avoided absolutes and resisted being pulled into polarized narratives. Rather than rejecting his past beliefs, he began reframing them as part of a larger personal evolution. His silence was often misinterpreted as avoidance, but those who knew him described it as caution. Travolta understood that belief systems are deeply personal, and public judgment rarely allows nuance to survive intact. Choosing words carefully in a loud world. In later years, Travolta acknowledged that navigating belief, fame, and privacy simultaneously required discipline. When asked indirectly about controversy, he emphasized the importance of education, self-awareness, and personal choice rather than allegiance or opposition. He never positioned himself as a spokesperson, nor as a defector. Instead, he framed his journey as ongoing. That distinction mattered to him. He understood how easily words could be amplified, distorted, or weaponized. Rather than fueling speculation, he chose restraint. In rare interviews, he spoke about honesty without elaboration, signaling growth without inviting conflict. For Travolta, silence was not denial, but control. It allowed him to protect his family, preserve dignity, and remain grounded. In an industry that thrives on exposure, his refusal to overshare became an act of self-preservation rather than secrecy. Loss. That redefined everything. In 2009, Travolta's life shifted in a way that no belief system or career success could prepare him for. The sudden passing of his son, Jet, during a family vacation, devastated him completely. Grief stripped away everything superficial, leaving only what truly mattered. Acting faded into the background. Public opinion became irrelevant. What remained was family, memory, and survival. Travolta spoke openly about love and loss without assigning blame or explanation. Years later, he honored Jet quietly through reflection rather than performance. This loss altered how he viewed everything, including belief and purpose. Tragedy narrowed his world, but deepened it emotionally. It taught him that meaning cannot be outsourced to fame, philosophy, or validation. It must be built slowly, internally, and with care. Love, partnership, and another goodbye. Through unimaginable grief, Kelly Preston became Travolta's steady presence, offering balance when the world felt unrecognizable. Their marriage was built on partnership rather than spectacle, and together they shielded their family from unnecessary exposure. When Kelly passed away in 2020 after a private illness, Travolta faced silence once again, deeper and heavier than before. He shared his gratitude publicly, but his mourning remained largely private. Friends noted that he withdrew not out of despair, but devotion. He focused on being present for his children, allowing himself time rather than distraction. The loss reinforced his commitment to authenticity over appearance. Fame no longer defined him. Belief no longer anchored him. Love did. That shift shaped the quieter life he lives today, one centered on presence rather than pursuit. A life rebuilt on different terms. Today, John Travolta's world is intentionally smaller, shaped by routine, reflection, and family. His children are his priority, his home a sanctuary rather than a showcase. Hollywood no longer dictates his value, and he does not chase relevance. He chooses projects selectively, guided by meaning instead of momentum. The controversies that once followed him have faded into background noise. What remains is a man who understands the cost of visibility and the value of restraint. His past beliefs, successes, and struggles coexist without conflict. Travolta no longer explains himself. He lives. His story is not one of rebellion or revelation, but evolution. In a culture addicted to extremes, his quiet balance stands out. The truth beneath the legend. John Travolta's journey is not defined by fame, belief, or controversy alone, but by endurance. He rose early, fell publicly, returned unexpectedly, and survived privately. The silence he keeps today is not emptiness, but wisdom earned through loss and experience. Fame once made the world dance, but it could not protect him from grief or choice. What defines him now is not what he says, but how he lives. In stepping back, he has reclaimed something rare in Hollywood: control over his own narrative. His story reminds us that identity is not fixed, belief is not static, and silence can be a form of strength. When the noise fades, what remains is character, and that is the legacy John Travolta continues to write.